Good afternoon, everybody. Why don't we go ahead and get started here? Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Mike Slauson, and I'm the Regional General Manager here at Kastle Systems for our South region. Before I jump into what we're going to be talking about for the next 45 minutes to an hour, basically our agenda, there's a couple of housekeeping items I want to go over first. There is a slider bar that separates the presentation from the panelist video cameras. So just FYI for everyone, if you move that bar, it'll increase or decrease the size of the presentation. Secondly, just due to the size of the audience that we have here and basically just the format that we have, all microphones have been muted. So if you have a question, we ask that you please submit it on the question box. And we'll do everything we can, obviously, to answer the questions. As you can imagine, this format's a little bit tough. I do want to note that we have a gentleman named Daniel Korn in the background. He's going to be monitoring questions and kind of doing the technical overview. So if you hear a voice all of a sudden, it's not some crazy person. It's Daniel speaking up. And then lastly, we'll be sending out a link to the recording of this session to all the attendees after the event. So just in case over the next couple of days you get really bored and want to see it again, we'll send the link out and you guys can watch it again. Let me go ahead and dive in to our agenda. Let me get the screen going. There we go. So really the objectives of today's discussion, you can see there the topic. And so Texas is leading the nation on employees returning to work. And I'm going to show you guys some data points that we have on why we're saying this. And then what are peers doing to ensure when their employees return to work that they're returning safely? And so we begin a lot of questions about this across the board from our customers. So we thought it'd be ideal if we put up a panel and had a discussion on something like this. So the 4 bullets you see there, again, is how we're going to spend the next 45 minutes to an hour. The first thing we're going to talk about is work barometer. This is something that we have been tracking as far as data points since early March, and it shows us by market how people are coming back to work across the U.S. We'll be talking about the framework and integration of the different technologies. So over the last, I guess, 3 to 6 months, we've been working on different technologies to help our customers, and we'll be talking about some of that. Really, the third bullet, I would say, is the meat of today, and that's where we're going to be spending most of our time, and it's with the panelists. So we're going to be hearing from the local leaders here at these different companies and talk specifically to them about what they've done to build confidence in their employees returning to work. And so I want to thank them in advance for sharing that with us. And lastly, we've got this umbrella we call KastkeSafeSpaces. It's 4 pillars, and again, it's the products and services we've created to help our customers in the return work to safe. So that'll be the last thing we talk about at the very end. Let me do a real quick introduction of our panelists, and whenever we get to the webinar portion of the questions and answers, they can give a little more in-depth introduction of themselves and their companies, but I want to thank them in advance. We've got Pat Markham, he's a Senior Director of Workplace Services with RealPage, and that's out of the Dallas market. Lisa Ramon, who's the HR Manager for Foster Global in Austin. It's a multi-site location, and I want to thank her in advance for joining us. And then we've got Brooke Carlone from our Chief Human Resource Officer here at Kastle. And so just to be transparent with everyone, kind of put Brooke on the spot. So we did have a third panelist here in Houston, and unfortunately, they had some issues and were unable to make it. So I did ask Brooke if she could step in and help in the conversation. And what I would tell you guys, while we are a service provider, we have the same concerns and issues that everybody else has as far as worrying about when our employees are coming back to work, that they're coming back to a safe environment. Let me give you a little bit of background about Kastle, and I think this is imperative when we start asking the question, why is a managed service security company talking about returning to work? And so I just want to mention this real quick. If you look, hopefully most of you know who Kastle is, but just in case you don't, we're the leader in managed security services for commercial real estate and multifamily across the U.S. If you look at kind of our scope of who we're providing services for, we've got about 3,600 buildings under our umbrella. And if you look to the right in the middle, about 41,000 businesses. So Most of our operations is in commercial real estate. Most of it's a multi-tenant environment. On the bottom there, you can see the type of services we provide. So over the last 50 years, I think most of you probably know our core competency is access control. Specifically, it's a cloud-based solution that we've had, and we've had it for, like I said, 50 plus years. We also offer video services. We've got Kastle Front Office, which is our visitor management system, integrated platforms. So whether it's garage systems, elevator systems, we've got full integration. But the one thing I want to focus on is kind of that middle number, the 1.3 million cardholders. So as I mentioned, I think everybody knows our core competency is access control. And we have about 1.3 million cardholders today. And being a cloud-based solution, we get the card reads from each of these cardholders on a daily basis and a continuous basis. So if you look at it pre-pandemic, before March timeframe, we were getting millions and millions and millions of pieces of data on a daily basis. And so what ended up happening is then March hit, and as everybody knows, the stay-at-home order started coming into place across the U.S. in the different markets. And so we just saw our data just drop like a rock, basically our customers' data, the card reads. And you can see on the left side where it's early March, you can clearly see what happened, and that's a weekly trend up into October 7th. And so what initially happened is we had kind of a micro view of this. And what I mean by that is we had our customers, tenants and buildings, asking us information. They were basically saying, hey, can you let us know who came into the office yesterday now that we're shut down? Or can you provide me some occupancy data for the last day or a week so we can kind of see what trends are happening in our own workspaces? And so we started providing those reports, and then it just led into more and more and more discussions, as you can imagine. And we started getting to a more macro view. So we started looking at more on a metropolitan area or city view. And you can see on the far right, you can see for those folks that are from Dallas, congratulations. By our data, you're #1 in America as far as people returning to work at over 40%. But if you look at the overall, you can see Texas in general is leading the way from all the metropolitan areas. And to give you some, relative numbers, I know we don't have it over there, but let me just take you, like New York is about 16.6%, San Francisco is at 14.5%, Washington, D.C., 23%. So what I'm trying to tell you, it's a substantial difference. And so what ended up happening is this data, as it went to a macro level, it started getting more, publicity is what you would say. And so we started getting, whether it's through the news media, it's through newspapers, online articles, you name it. A lot of publications started pulling this data. And I should have mentioned on the previous slide, that information is on our website at kastle.com, and it's updated on a weekly basis as far as those trend lines by metropolitan areas. And so this data just gets pulled. And so whether it's the Dallas Morning News, the Houston Chronicle, both of those newspapers, we've had multiple articles referencing our data and asking questions. So we've had the media asking questions, and now we've had customers. If you remember before, with our 41,000 customers across the US, many are asking us, hey, what are our peers doing? And do you have anything that can help us return to work safe? So when I say all that, that's kind of laying the foundation of today's discussion. That's kind of hopefully answering the question, why is a managed security provider hosting a webinar on returning to work? And that's the reason. So you can see the questions again. If I go to the next slide, I'm not going to run through all these, but these are samples of types of questions that we see from our customers. While we won't be able to get to all of them, it does lead into our panel discussion where we're going to hear from the 3 panelists about what they're doing specifically in their environments. And the other thing I would say is throughout this process, and I would say from the March to year to date, based on the questions we're getting from our customers and the concerns we're getting from our customers, we're trying to put solutions in place to help them. And even if it's not our own solution, maybe it's integrating with another solution, we're working very hard to get to that point. I think most people, if you talk about return to work and kind of what their plan is, I think everyone's hitting the top categories, those top 5 bullets. I'm going to increase my cleaning, make sure surface areas are clean so we don't have any transmission through the surface area. PPE. People are going to wear masks, except maybe when you're at your office, but otherwise, common areas coming into the facilities, make sure you wear your mask. Don't gather up a bunch of people, whether it's conference room, break rooms, or bathrooms, and changing traffic flows. So I think everyone's kind of doing their part on that portion of it. We still get, though, if you look at those questions, what can we do above and beyond? What can we do from a technology standpoint to enhance the safety of our employees? And so that's the bottom part, right? So that's a solid is, health attestation screening, maybe tied to your access control. So that anyone that's entering your facility has attested that, hey, I don't have any symptoms, and I haven't been around anyone with symptoms. Temperature checks, contact tracing. We have many instances, as you guys can imagine, to where it's not if someone is going to get, the virus within the organization, but it's when. And when they do, we've had many instances, hey, can you help me understand, I had this employee that was here at this time, can you run a report and let me know, who else was there, who else was in those common areas? So really enhancing kind of the safety of the employees. And what we've done is we've really put all this under an umbrella. And I'm not going to bore everyone with the specifics right now. I'd like to get into the panel discussion. But what I would tell you is at the very end, I'll talk a little bit about some of the solutions that we've classified as KastkeSafeSpaces. And the 4 pillars we've identified is screening in, screening out, having a touchless environment. Again, it's a virus-based issue that we're dealing with. Plenty of social distancing, and then having that contact tracing, not if, but when someone does get infected. And you can see access control really is the foundation of everything we're talking about here, which again is the foundation of what Kastle's all about for the last 50 years. So with that said, I am now going to get into the panel discussion, and I have got to figure out how to not share my screen. And 1 second. I hope, and my screen's a little bit different than others, but right now you're not seeing the panel discussion, but you're seeing the grid of the 4 of us together. So I got the thumbs up from Brooke, so I think we're in good shape. Great. So guys, let me go ahead and just jump right into it. Again, this is kind of the meat of the discussion. And just if I could go around to each one of you, and really, if you could introduce yourself, maybe introduce your company, and let us know, how the pandemic affected your offices in March when all the stay-at-home orders came into place and the shutdowns occurred. And if you guys don't mind, Pat, if I could put you on the spot and maybe start with Pat, that would be fantastic.
Great, thanks, Mike. So I'm Pat Markham. I'm with RealPage, the Real Estate and Workplace Services Group. So I'm a Senior Director of Operations, which means I have responsibility for the operations of all of our facilities across the U.S. So our headquarters in Richardson, just outside of Dallas. We've got about 2,000 employees that call headquarters home. It's a 400,000 square foot facility. It's primarily open office. Not a lot of enclosures, not a lot of walls and barriers that are between our associates. Luckily for us, we have 6-foot workspaces, so we have appropriate distancing in place. But in addition to headquarters, I've got 19 other offices across the U.S. And then I'm also part of the COVID task force, which was put together, and we're interchanging information with our international offices in Colombia, London, Barcelona, Philippines, and India. So we have over 6,200 employees that were affected in mid-March. We didn't think, I guess I'll back up. So we got a little bit of a head start. We had a scare in our India office, and it was when cases were first starting. So there was a rumor that somebody in an adjacent floor was tested positive, and at that point, the offices in India, they actually shut down the building. So we had 1,500 people that were then forced to work from home before the shutdown started across the U.S. So that prompted us to actually start thinking, what happens if 1 or 2 of our offices actually do have to shut down? having no clue that it was going to be every office around the world that was going to be shutting down.
Right.
So we started some things a little early. We started procuring laptops for our contact centers. We had contact center employees that worked off of desktops. They couldn't work from home in the old format. We didn't have a work from home program. We liked having people in the office and built environments that encourage people to work in the office. So we were able to deploy laptops and get people what they needed to work remotely. Did that in a very short period of time, and luckily got our orders in a little quicker than some of the other people because we had that scare out near our India office. So it's we never thought this was going to be a long-term solution. We were kind of hoping it would be a couple weeks, a month, but it's drug on, and here we are today. We're still trying to get people back in the office. We have a goal of November 2nd to bring in 50% of our employees in locations that we think can reopen. We've had a few kind of swing and miss with reopening, just because I don't think the employees were ready to come back into the environment. But we've done a lot of things to try to make it more comfortable for them that we'll definitely dive into as we get through this conversation.
Great, thank you. That's a great introduction. So huge task at hand too, also just the overall scope, multiple offices and international. So you got quite a perspective, I would think, through this whole thing. Lisa, you want to talk a little bit about Foster Global? I know you guys are multi-site location. You're there in Austin. I know, law firm. If you look back to that March time frame, how did the pandemic, affect you guys also, and talk a little bit about your company?
Well, my name is Lisa Ramon. I'm the HR and office manager for the Foster Austin office. Our firm has about 122 employees, and we're global. Thankfully, global employees and local have not been affected, so we've been lucky there. We are a law firm, and so it's a global firm. We have services for businesses, families, and individuals. We've been in business since 1973, and I've been here for 16 years. So, and I know we've been doing business with Kastle for about 15 years now. We've had the biometric readers, panic buttons, and Bluetooth readers, which have worked out pretty well for us, especially right now. Our current building where I'm at now, there's 4 stories, and so we did have one person on our floor that did contract COVID, and so that was a little bit, a little scary. They shut down the building, but overall, I think our employees we had a few that were, worried about coming back to work, and so what we initially did is we had workstations prepared for them to be able to take home and work from home. So it was a lot of attorneys, legal assistants, and I guess what I wanted to say is part-time employees were also affected, but we were not able to, there wasn't any work they could do from home. So they were affected, but we still paid them as if they were here with gift hours until we were able to bring them back in a safe environment. So that was something that I really appreciated that our firm did. Our partners immediately got us all together, and so it was HR and our executive partners trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to get everybody up and running? So we were able to get them cell phones, we got them purchased laptops, computers, same thing, to get them up and running. So it was definitely, one of those things where nobody was expecting it, and when it really did hit, everything shut down. Nobody was prepared for that level, but we were definitely moved fast, and we've got great partners and IT department that got us all together and ready to work from home. I guess keeping track of all of those things as they monitors the computers to get everybody started, that is the inventory that really took the most time, making sure that we had the security protocols and signing all those forms for anyone that was using a computer that was going to be at home, making sure they had the right services to be able to support all of that, making sure portals and everything for clients to upload their documents. So that was utmost importance for us there too, in addition to making sure everyone was safe at home. And so the challenges I think we've faced is motivating the employees and making sure that everybody is doing well at home, which, I think the timesheets have helped not just for them to be able to track their productivity, but for us and be able to see, you know, how they're doing. That's how we were able to notice that there were some employees that were not doing well working from home. So we were able to bring them in, being essential. We brought in 5 to 8 people, and right now I think we're up to 9 or 10, but doing it safely has definitely helped in that respect.
Yeah, so back in the March timeframe, did you guys, as far as your office there, was that a complete shutdown? Did everyone work at remote at that point?
For about a day or two until we were able to get all the laptops, and thankfully we went through Dell computers, but they were able to get us the computers and the monitors and get the cameras, and of course we worked with our cell phone provider and get all the all staff with phones that were from firm issued phones so that they could conduct business, receive phone calls. Now we've gone to the voice over IP of phones, and so they're able to use those and streamline a lot of things, but it's
great.
It's been,
Yep, thank you for the summary. So Brooke, I'll let you talk about Kastle. Obviously, I know a little bit about Kastle, but if you don't mind, if you could kind of summarize, you know, us back in the March timeframe and kind of what we went through, obviously.
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Brooke Carlin. I head up Human Resources here at Kastle Systems. I have a slightly different perspective than some in that I actually joined Kastle Systems at the start of the pandemic. So I had a whole different learning experience to learn about Kastle, because I really learned about all of our facilities and our practices and our policies through a lot of COVID management and a lot of return to office planning. We've got offices across the US and an office in Australia as well. So there were a lot of different geographies to work through. Like Patrick, we very much were an office-based company. So really, we're not a company that had a lot of folks working from home or working remotely. So at the start of the pandemic, it was a significant lift to be able to shift some folks to being able to work from home, while recognizing that some folks would not be able to work from home, either because of the nature of the role that they had, such as like our field techs who would be going out to different client sites and servicing different issues, as well as some of our systems and the need to have employees in the office to be able to monitor different systems and what have you. So we had a little bit of a different experience because we had people in the field, we had people in the office, and we had people from home to navigate through very quickly. Like Lisa, I would say our technology group, our IT team, really kind of did some heroics with equipment and phone systems and getting as many people as we possibly could set up to be able to work from home. While on the other side, we spent quite a bit of time figuring out how do we keep our essential workers safe, especially those who were in the office and didn't have the ability to work from home, and we needed them to work as essential workers, and our employees who were out in the field going to physical locations that we really couldn't control. And so kind of working through that. I will say I am really glad that the early days of difficulty in finding PPE and those types of things are somewhat behind us. There's still some challenges with things like that, but we struggled with a lot of those kinds of pieces for the immediate need, and then beginning the planning for how do we get our folks back in the office and back to work. Probably like most of the panelists and others, we really had no expectation that come October, we would still have so many people working remotely. We really thought probably by May, you know, maybe a little earlier, we would be kind of right back in. So I would say the initial kind of everyone move, go work from home, we still had people leaving things in the refrigerator, for example, at the office because they thought they'd be back to get it. So we had some smelly food to deal with as well once we started getting all of the planning going.
So, but based on that, I mean, one of the things you just said there was kind of talking about some of the discussions as far as like returning to work. Again, I know the answers, but if you could kind of convey to everyone, when did the discussion start occurring within Kastle as far as, let's return back to work and let's start that process. And then, who was leading those types of discussions, within the organization?
Yeah, it started almost immediately, right? Because the conversations around how do we keep people safe who are already staying in the office, as well as those out in the field, it kind of synced with how do we return people back to the office, because we knew we had people in the office that we wanted them to feel safe. We didn't want them to be at greater risk because we hadn't taken measures. So early on, we pulled together a committee and we identified people from our various offices to participate, and really identifying what are the physical updates that would be needed, what are some of the educational updates, the things that we'll need to make sure our employees understand and know about, and then what are some of the policy and process areas that would need to change. And I think that was an evolution. So it started and we had our first list, and then something new would happen, or we'd learn something new. And so that list kind of kept growing. And I would say, that in all honesty, continues to this day. We continue to learn more, do more, and really work to be able to get people back to work.
Yep. Pat, same thing, I guess, on your side, just looking at this thing. I know, you talked about the complexity of your environment and stuff like that. So you probably had to deal with different timetables and different timelines and different ways of doing things. But, obviously today we're talking about Texas. So maybe the focus on the corporate office. I think you've got an office in Waco and some other locations. Yeah. How did those discussions start, thought process, who's leading them, back in the March timeframe?
Yeah, so we quickly put together a crisis management team that included the senior leaders from our largest operational departments that run the biggest units around the world. It was our RUS team, our real estate and facilities team, HR, legal, corporate communications, IT, basically the leaders of all the major functions of the business came together and started meeting. I think it was daily at the time. We're still meeting several times a week, every week, but I think we were meeting just about daily. I was stuck in rooms for a month or two at a time, it seems, living and breathing all the changes, because it was rapid. Every day, every hour, it seemed that some new information would come out, or a rumor would come out, or it was just a lot of information to deal with, and we really had to be fluid in our response. And I really, I've only been at RealPage for a little under 2 years, and I was really impressed with how rapidly they would change. There's a lot of organizations, there's a lot of bureaucracy where it takes a little bit of time to get decisions made, but we were able to pivot, I'd say almost instantaneously when things would change in the environment. Like I said, we thought we were reopening within a few days or a few weeks later, and obviously didn't think it was going to drag on this far. We had a concerted effort to try to reopen in June because, basically we just wanted to get people back here so we can collaborate. Our productivity was just fine. Everybody was productive and doing what they needed to do. Our shareholders were happy. Things were going really, really well. We just wanted to get bodies back so that we can collaborate again. And just as we were starting to pull people back in, it was all voluntary. So we were, encouraging people to come in, but it was really their choice. And we didn't have a lot of success. We got maybe, 10 or 15%. Our goal was 30%. We didn't come anywhere near that. And then the spikes happened, especially down here in Texas, towards the end of June, beginning of July, and then we shut it all right back down to virtually nothing. We are categorized essential business because of the financial work that we do in the real estate market. So we're able to have people in all of our facilities if we want to, and luckily we have the ability to do that because we do have food that we had to deal with. We have plumbing that hasn't been used in several months, and there's all kinds of strange things that you got to make sure are operational as you try to get things back into operation. Because when we reopen, we want it to want it to be a pleasant environment. We don't want it to be someplace where it's dirty, it smells, or what's in that drawer. We want to eliminate all the potential reasons why somebody wouldn't want to come back into the office and do their job.
Yep. Oh, that makes perfect sense. And then Lisa, I know, again, multi-site, you guys across the nation, but you specific there in the Austin timeframe, were you guys kind of leading the charge for just your Austin unit, or were you part of like a bigger group that was working through kind of the policies and procedures at a national level?
We were a little bit of everything pretty much, and we had our management team. Our COO is here in the Austin office. He's a managing partner here in the Austin office, and he definitely led the charge there. Had everybody in our best practices trying to figure out what we needed to do. But I think it was, I have to say, it was really fast. We got everything done, got everybody out there, got them working. We were a little concerned because, you know, we just thought it was, everything kept going up and down. The numbers, like Pat said, were pretty high. And so having to figure out how many people can we have in the office that would be safe. But everybody, the attorneys had offices, so if they wanted to come in, they could do that. It was just the common areas that we were concerned about, and coming in and out of the building, and then getting cross-contamination and that sort of thing with our elevators in our building. But our building did a great job of being able to keep us safe, and so we were able to bring in at least 10 people. We're still considering how many people we want to bring in, but I think with everyone being able to work from home, we're kind of keeping it, you know, this way for a little while longer for, you know, 10 people here. But I would say that, you know, the building did a great job in making sure that everything was clean, was safe. We were able to get management from the building to come in and clean our areas as well, about 3 to 4 times a day. So
Okay.
we felt pretty safe, and employees felt safe in coming back. But thankfully, our team, HR, I have 2 HR reps also in Houston, and so they were able to work with the Houston office and me being here in Austin. So I can see where Texas was definitely leading and is leading all of this, because we're very much about, you know, getting the job done and how do we keep our people safe. And we do a lot for our employees, and I've seen that in a lot of friends that work at different companies. They do the same thing. They want to keep their employees working and safe. So we can't wait to get back. I don't know when that's going to be. We still haven't decided, but.
Right. Well, I can tell you on my way home yesterday, the traffic I hit, I could definitely tell Texas is back to work.
It was much better with the 10-minute commute to work. It was wonderful.
Oh my gosh, it was horrible yesterday. Anyway, well, Lisa, if I could just kind of build off of top of that of what you just said, then as far as current policies, then for your employees returning to work, what is your current policy, and how did your organization decide aggressively to bring people back? If they want to come back, how what is the policy?
At this time, if we still have the 10 people, if they want to come in or handle anything in the office, get any filings or things done on their own, they come in the evenings, or they'll come in on the weekends, but we keep it to the same 10 people in the office daily. We have a skeleton crew that does a lot of the filings from here. The attorneys do the work, and the legal systems from their home office, and send everything in a very safe portal through our tracking system. And so the same thing with our accounting, that's how they address a lot of those issues. We print everything here, send it out. FedEx is still saving us here. They're still showing up and picking up our packages, thankfully. But I think we're going to be able to bring in more people after the new year, hopefully. But I think it's been great to be able to have the app with Kastle app on our phones and give people access that way. We also have a motor on the door, so they're able to go in and out without having to touch any doors. So that's been wonderful. It's Bluetooth. As soon as you walk up to the door opens. You go straight to your office. There is testing that we want them to do, check their temperatures. They do wash their hands and so forth, and then head straight to their office. A lot of, what we used to have before, like I said, the being able to motivate employees is because we don't have the lunches that we used to have. So you find other ways to motivate the employees, but still keep them safe and happy, and keep everybody working.
Yeah, so I'm curious. I noticed you do have the touchless doors, and I know, very at the beginning, obviously, and even today, the virus on services, stuff like that. Just thinking of the decision process there. I mean, was that on the executives, or who was driving, I guess, the touchless environment from a safety standpoint?
That was our COO here in the Austin office. Definitely immediately reached out to Kastle and talked to John Bennett and get everything together, and they were able to, work with us and say, okay, what is the time frame? We just wanted it installed as soon as possible. We were able to work with a contractor to get the door motorized. And we basically wanted it to where we just walk up to it or, don't even have to touch anything, even like handicap. So we were, able to do all of that wireless, and it's worked out great. I mean, employees felt a lot safer. So people that were coming in, they weren't as hesitant, which is what we wanted. So it worked out great.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to put touchless in everywhere. So we haven't done door operators because we have way too many doors to equip with operators, but we have put some self-cleaning antiviral strips on doors, on high-use doors. So the sales pitch was that those will keep the door safe and clean. So we've put that at all of our entrances. We definitely increased cleanings and have visible cleanings to make sure that our employees see the sanitization efforts that are taking place. We've put in touchless faucets at coffee bars where people at sinks. We're putting in touchless faucets within some of the bathrooms. Just everything we can do to have people not touch as many different things, we're definitely pushing for. We even found through we changed coffee providers through this process, not because of anything with COVID, but we got some new coffee machines, and we talked to the providers, how do we make the coffee machine touchless? So you could actually scan a QR code and use your phone instead of the touchpad on the coffee maker. So we're looking at a lot of different options to just try to eliminate those barriers and reasons why people wouldn't want to come back in.
That makes sense. That's great. So Brooke, I'll turn it over to you, just asking the question as far as current policy, as far as employees return to the office, what is the current policy here at Kastle? And how aggressively we're bringing people back, the decisions there.
Yeah, it's been a bit of an evolution. So, originally we expected to have at least 50% of our employees back in really by June. Our Houston office was the first office to reopen, and it was also the first office to close back down immediately, almost, or it felt like it was almost immediate. With that, and and we had taken some steps ahead of that to make sure the office was ready for folks, right? So, we use touchless doors as well. I think one of the things that we really made a concerted effort on was to make sure that we educated employees as well, because a lot of things were going to look different when they came back to the office. So we developed a training program and required that every single employee go through this virtual training program before they return to the office, because we needed them to understand when you come in, you're going to have to wash your hands. There are temperature kiosks. We use daily health attestations through our Kastle presence, that's tied to access control. So they'd have to complete that daily. We have hand sanitizer. I think we probably have hand sanitizer every 5 steps. At least it feels like that in our offices now, just to keep that kind of going. And so the training was really important for our employees. So they knew what to expect when they came back in. Not only so they would probably feel a little bit better and know what the company was doing, but also so they knew what was expected of them. They knew that they were, they were going to have to continue to wear masks. They knew that the tables and chairs that used to be in the cafeteria wouldn't be there anymore. And meeting rooms were not going to be used for a while. So, that education piece was really a key component. And we tied it to their access too, because we just like to tie everything to access. So if they didn't complete the training, their access wouldn't work to the building. So we had 2 things that, every employee had to do to be able to get back in the building. They had to complete the training. And then every single day they have to complete the health attestation to be able to come into the building.
Yep. No, that's good. Yeah, we've definitely used, I would say, a lot of technology, to our advantage, obviously. But again, we've had the same concerns, I think, as just everybody else out there. Patrick, Lisa, any other things as far as how technology played a factor as far as the safe return of, employees coming back to work that you guys are thinking about or that you've done as far as in preparation?
Yeah, so we're definitely using the access control system to monitor occupancies, just to kind of see who's coming and going from properties and who's, when are people last been in there, so we can evaluate what kind of cleaning we need to do. If we have a property that, nobody's going into or one person's going into, once or twice a week, I can back down the janitorial service and not have it cleaned as much, make sure we let those employees know that it's not being cleaned so they don't leave something behind. But we'll use that to kind of gauge what kind of activities happening and adjust the services that we're providing. And as we start to reopen, we definitely want to keep monitoring, make sure there's some government guidelines, local guidelines that restrict the occupancy of how many people we're supposed to have. We want to make sure we stay within those guidelines, and it's through different technologies that we can track occupancy. We've installed some UV lights to help protect the air filtration, to improve the sanitization of the airflow. We're in an older facility here in Richardson. It looks new, but the guts are still pretty old. So we can't do a lot of a lot of recommendations are to increase outside airflow. That's just not feasible in our current environment. So we found other ways to clean and sanitize the HVAC system to make sure we're providing cleaner air to our employees. We are putting in some temperature checks or temperature screening equipment in facilities. It's not mandatory. We do have mandatory health checks that people are supposed to do on their own before they even leave the house, because if they're sick, we don't want them even in commuting to work, let alone at the office. But in addition to that, if they come in and they want to check their temperature again, we're putting some temperature stations at our perimeter entrances so people can check their temperatures again. We're trying to do as much as we can through our phone, because your phone's already a dirty device. It's got your germs on it. So, if I can have you do things with your phone, whether it's using that for Bluetooth access through the doors or, getting your coffee right at the coffee bar, we're going to push that effort rather than have you, touch different things and push things around. So there's definitely technology solutions, and I think there's going to be more and more touchless options come out as we're going through. We're actually talking with Kastle about trying to figure out how to use our phone to do elevator control. And we know it's happened at other facilities that Kastle's worked at, and we're trying to see how do we make that work here too, so I don't have to push elevator buttons anymore.
Yep, that's a great plug. We are working with a lot of buildings. I'll be honest with you guys, for destination dispatch type elevator systems and floor controls, to where within the Kastle app, you can call an elevator, tell what floor you want it to go to, hop on the elevator and just go. So you're not touching any of the surfaces, because obviously in today's day and age, it's important, and it's going to continue to be important going forward. Lisa, anything else from a technology, how it's played a factor? Anything you guys, I know you've got the motorized doors, which is really cool. Any other factors you guys are considering or looking at?
I think we're going to consider looking into the camera to be able to see who's at the door and be able to open that. Right now, we're not seeing any clients. We're doing everything via Teams and Zoom and those types of meetings with our own employees and clients. So that's definitely been great. We do have a lot of Foster water bottles now that, we hand out to clients now. So we'll keep those in our kitchen for a while. But, we definitely miss the traffic, seeing the clients, but we can do that via Teams, and they feel safer, we feel safer. So thankfully, we've been able to use that. We also went to a virtual receptionist, so they're able to handle our calls, and because now it's pretty much double, triple to what we had before. Clients are calling in, they've got more access to their information, and definitely want to keep in touch and see what's going on. Seeing that everything is global travel is where it is, they're quite concerned, and a lot of these clients want to know when and how, and they hear something in the news and they immediately call. So we want them to be able to get in touch with their attorneys, their legal assistants as well, which is why we had the voice over IP phones, and they're able to use that and go through the Foster system and not have to use their own personal cell phones or have any issues like that. So keeping everything safe, confidentiality is very important, making sure their documents are received and we're able to communicate with them. So we are looking into that camera, so hopefully that is something that we can put in place soon. And I'm going to look into that elevator. That sounds interesting.
It's definitely cool. Speaking of all this in elevators and building and landlords, it's kind of an area I'd like to just touch on real quick if you guys don't mind. And really what that relationship has been like through this pandemic, expectations you have on the building and the landlords, how those conversations have gone. Obviously, we're in a unique position because we service both buildings and tenants. And, when I look across the US, I see just, I guess, different views here. One thing I see in Texas is a lot of buildings are pushing the liability, I would say, onto the tenants and say it's your responsibility to ensure your employees are safe. I'm just curious, y'all's viewpoint. What are you seeing? And Brooke, I'll excuse you from this question just so you guys know, we own the building here at Kastle.
How's your landlord?
Yeah, great. Awesome. So maybe Patrick and Lisa, maybe you guys could just touch on that point as far as, again, the building and the landlord.
Yeah, so we've got 19 properties across the U.S. and we're a tenant in 19 different properties. So it really varies on the environment. At our headquarters, we control our perimeter entrance on one half of the building, and on the other half of the building, we have to go through the landlord's portion of the building. So we definitely coordinate with them to understand what they're doing. Primarily so we can inform our employees what to expect as they come in, and also to help let them know this is what the landlord's doing and this is what we're doing. So if they see a hand sanitizer bottle and it's empty and it's at the elevators in the landlord space, they know, hopefully they're not yelling at us that it's empty. They're, we can get to the landlord and help get them fixed. But it's really just trying to educate our employees on what to expect as they come in, because there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of fear about the unknown of coming back into the office, since a lot of them haven't been here for 6 months or so. So like helping them understand what to expect as they come back in is really important. And again, depending on the location and the size and the class of property, we have some properties that are in high-rise urban centers, and we have some properties that are in suburban, maybe not even suburban environments. But it's really, we've pushed our landlords to develop plans. So when we were trying to reopen offices, a lot of them weren't necessarily ready for us to come back. So we were pushing them to develop plans so that we can present that back to our employees. So it's been a two-way street, definitely, to make sure that everyone was aware of what was going on.
Right. Okay. And then Lisa, I know you're in a multi-tenant building there in Austin, obviously. Just curious, again, what that relationship's been like with the building and property management group.
I think, well, building management has been really good with us. We've been communicating. They send us emails. What we've really asked is the same thing as Pat, that they communicate with us and the two-way street so that we're able to understand what they're doing and what we have to do, and not have any confusion of, oh, well, we thought you were responsible for that. Or so the communication has been really good. We've mentioned to them that here's what we need. They were able to get the cleaning crew, day and night crew, to be able to come in and clean for us on certain days, and then 3 to 4 times. And so then we know they're doing it, and then we do our part. They've added the filters. They've been able to clean all the common areas. They put up the signage. That was huge because the communication, like Pat said, was definitely huge. So they've posted that. They've put stations, cleaning stations, as soon as you walk out of the elevator. So before you exit the building or you come in, so you know that your hands are clean. If they're elevators, they clean them, I guess 3 or 4 times a day as well. So, and we see the cleaning crew daily. There's not a lot of people in our building just yet, which is what we were trying to see, what types of businesses are here, how many people are coming in and out. We do have a physician's office downstairs, so that was one of our biggest concern, and the employees' concern in coming back to the office and making sure that anyone that was walking in sick or something was not going to be, other tenants were not going to be contracting anything. So the building did talk to the physician's office, so they've got some spots outside where they meet and talk to the people that come in that think they might have COVID. So, but it's pretty safe in where we're at, but that was definitely one of the big concerns, and making sure that anybody coming in to visit the physician's office was, in an area that wasn't close to the elevators, and that those areas were clean. So I think building management has done an outstanding job of doing that and communicating with us. We get an email every single day if there's anything that comes up where it's a tenant in the building on the floor or anything is, maybe has symptoms or, tested positive, they will definitely let us know.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's one of the things we had to coordinate too, is make sure we understood how we were responding, because we have people in the facilities. There are people that do get confirmed positive to having COVID, either whether there are employees that were in the space or a contractor that works for us, or another tenant within the property. But understanding, when we need to sanitize something, what's the protocol, how is it being cleaned, what products are being used. I learned a lot. There's a big difference between sanitization and disinfection and cleaning. Those aren't all the same things, and they all have different costs associated with them. So understanding what the response is and knowing that ahead of time, so that when someone does get sick, or if somebody gets sick, we know what the response will be. We can tell the employees what to expect. No, we're not shutting the building down. We're not going to fumigate and bomb the whole facility with disinfectant when it happens. We know exactly what we're going to do and how it's going to be done, following guidelines that are provided by the CDC or WHO or whatever the authority is.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of playing off what Patrick was saying, we've had some positive cases early on during the pandemic. So having an action plan on what you're going to do, I will say contact tracing became really important for us. So, knowing who was in the building, when they were in the building, and where they were in the building became hugely important for us. So it was nice to be able to pull reports, since a lot of us aren't in the building, right? The managers aren't in the building. And since we're an essential business, we did have some folks who didn't have to be in the building, who decided they were going to work in the building or get something from the building. So being able to do that contact tracing and notify people, and then know what our plan was, how we were going to, we do a little more of the deep cleaning in the early days. We did do the shut things down and bomb the whole building type of thing in the early days. Our approach is a little bit different as CDC guidance has evolved a little bit now. But it did reinforce to us the importance of pushing things like the exit readers. Before, we knew who came into the building, but we didn't know when they left. So we didn't know, they came in at 8, were they still there at 4 o'clock when this person happened to come through, or had they already left the building and so they didn't need to be a part of that contact tracing piece. So we've started to kind of push those, and we actually installed a few more exit readers and require employees to actually leverage those, so we knew exact time periods that people were in the office.
We thought that was really helpful. We didn't realize how important those reports were going to be, before we just took it for granted. And we had the readers, the biometric readers, where you would put your finger in there, enter your code, and the door would open. So then once we decided, you don't want to touch anything, you just want to walk straight in and wash your hands and don't touch anything, we went to the Bluetooth, which was a great idea, and it's worked out great. We've got a back door with the same thing. We've got 1, 2, 5 doors. And so all of them with that has been, great. Everybody feels safer, and that's what we wanted, the peace of mind. And with the building being great, they even started doing that in the other doors as well. So that's, leading that from our suite, saying this is what we're doing. And then they started asking us, sending us questions about how many employees do you have in the office, and so that they knew what they needed to do and how many to bring in as far as staff, cleaning crew, and they've done a great job. So we're thankful.
That's great. So Brooke, you highlighted one thing, or you made one comment talking about sanitizing, kind of lessons learned. So I just wanted to dive into that, probably just looking at our time, probably our last question before I go to Daniel, see if there's anything that we haven't covered there. But from a lessons learned standpoint, I'll kind of open it up to you guys now. Through this process, it's just, there hasn't been a playbook. This is all new to us, right? It started in March, and we're just continually learning. Any big lessons learned that we could share with the audience on, that you've evolved or that you've learned over the last 6 months, whatever that time frame is since March? And
I'll start.
okay.
I got one. So, it's
We've
really
all learned.
don't underestimate the anxiety of the employee. Having them work from home for an extended period of time, that's their new normal. And there's, whether it's legit or not, there's nervousness about coming into the new environment. It's almost like, new first day of school.
Yeah.
But there is real fear of the unknown, even though they still might be going to restaurants and other things on the weekend, which, if you're going there, you might as well come to the office. But there's real anxiety about coming back in. We thought that when we made it voluntary for people to come in, there was a certain population that thought, the majority of people would choose to come back to the office rather than stay at home. Like, why wouldn't you come to the office? But we quickly learned that that's not reality. That our employees had more fears going on than we were aware of. So now we've got, HR involved and other resources to help alleviate that. So from a facility standpoint, I can do everything I can to make it safe and clean for everybody. But if the employee's not ready to come walk through those doors, I can't force them to do it.
Yeah, great point. Yep.
Yeah, I'd say the other thing. Oh, go ahead, Lisa. Sorry.
No, I think that was ours as well because, having to send out those emails saying, okay, this is our employee wellness program, this is who you can contact, and making sure that they had those resources to turn to because, like you said, the anxiety was there. And that's, in being able to put in the timesheets and seeing what language they were using and how they were managing their time, we definitely found those that wanted to come back because they felt they had a need to come back. They could not work from home. Other anxiety issues came up, and so they were able to get the help they needed and be able to be in a safe place. And they had the anxiety of, I can't work from home, but I don't know if I can come in. That was hard for them to figure out what they were going to do and stressful. That we had maybe one or two people who decided, I don't think I can do this anymore. And you don't want people leaving because they're afraid to come back to the workplace because you like your employees, you want them to come back. We knew all of them and, on a personal basis and professional, and so you want them to be okay. And that's something that we did. It was a employee wellness program and letting them know what they could do and just giving them the resources to do that.
Awesome. One thing I will say is I think we've learned this is going to be longer term than what we thought originally. So some of the short-term solutions that we were thinking, well, we'll do this just for a little bit. We're deciding no, we're really looking at longer-term changes in how we operate and how we work within our facilities and with our employees. And the other thing we're also really cognizant of is that there's a little bit of COVID fatigue. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm really tired of the pandemic. I'd like things to go back to the way they were. But I also know that, it's still out there. There's, it's not necessarily any better in most cases, even though in some locations it's better right now. None of us want it to go back to any of those spikes, right? So I will say things like continuing that daily attestation, which is really simple. It just puts it in the forefront of people's minds so we don't get too complacent when we're coming into work and we, do we have sniffles or do we not? And I think that's a long-term thing for us because, we don't want to be the location that then all of a sudden there's a spike. We don't want to have a whole bunch of our employees exposed and then the tremendous, guilt and other feelings of, oh, crud, should we have done something different? So we're looking at this more longer term than what we did originally.
Yep. Okay. Daniel, I know you're out there somewhere. I'm very sensitive to time. Are there any questions that you're seeing that maybe consolidated that we could spend 30 seconds on, 45 seconds, or have we covered most of the questions that have come in, if any?
Hey, Mike, I fed a couple to Brooke, so if she thinks those are covered, then we're good.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we've hit on all of the different ones that have come in kind of as we've gone. So I think we're probably in good shape.
Good. All right, so hopefully the screen's back to normal. You guys can see the panel discussion screen. I hope. Good. All right. Let me bring this across the finish line. So I just want to finish with this right here. This is, again, KastkeSafeSpaces. We've had a lot of discussion here today. Kastle Presence, if you don't have it, it's our Bluetooth app. You can see on the far left where not only does it, use Bluetooth technology to unlock doors, but we have the Attestation, the screening tool, which is the second picture you see there. Have you been exposed? Have you been around someone with symptoms? And right now it's something that's used on a daily basis to gain access for 24 hours in your environment. So it provides some compliance into your environment. If I just keep going across the screen, I'm just going through the middle part. You can see also the app where it's called Kastle Glimpse. And this is where we talked about occupancy. So you heard from some of the panelists about monitoring occupancy in different environments. And here we can put a max occupancy fee, if we have exit readers and we can tell who's in and out, to really just cap things so we can have that social distancing, which is part of our 4 pillars up top. The Thermo Sentry and the facial temperature scanner, the two you see on there. Thermo Sentry is really a temperature scanner, maybe for a lobby area, for a big building where you got a mass amount of people coming all at once. But in the tenant world, I would say the facial temperature scanner on the right is an option for, if you want to drive compliance on temperature, we can tie that into access control. You have to have a good read for the reader to work, and then making sure all your employees don't have a temperature when they're in their environment. And the one you see with the 2D barcode here, the Kastle Visitor, again, we could do the same thing to ensure visitors. We can give them the attestation screening. They don't have symptoms before they come, and we can give them temporary access. So basically, they're not congregating in a lobby of a building and stuff like that, so that you have the spread possibilities. What I would mention is any information you guys may need, please contact your account manager directly. And I've got my email there also. So please feel free, from an audience standpoint, to contact me. And I really, really, really want to thank the panel members for sharing all the information you guys shared today. I think it was invaluable. I'm hoping our audience got some nuggets out of it, to help them. Because ultimately here in Texas, we want to take care of each other. And so, we are leading the nation, which is a great thing. We like to be leaders. But we want to make sure our employees, when they are coming back, that they are safe. So I think with that, I'm going to call it an end. And so I want to thank everyone again and have a great day.